G'day, it's James here. Welcome to the channel, and today we're installing a Wi-Fi ceiling fan controller. It's designed for most AC ceiling fans. It's made by Brilliant Lighting and it's Tuya based, and it works really well with Home Assistant. So today we're going to install it. We're going to install the fan, and we're also going to connect it up to Home Assistant using Tuya Local, and we'll see how it all works together. Now I know it's going to work well together because I have used these before. And we're also going to be pairing that with a 48-inch white ceiling fan. So to get started, we're going to jump in, we're going to measure up our room and see where it has to go. $28.50. Now we've got the size of the room, we can find the center where we want to mount our fan, and we can line up the center point on the ceiling. And then we can make a hole through to mark where we can put a support in the ceiling space if it's needed to mount the fan on, because obviously this is just plasterboard and it's not strong enough to hold the fan. So now we've done that, we can go and look in the roof and see where we need to put our support if we need one at all. So there's our mark. So we're definitely going to need a support for the fan. So we just measure how long it needs to be. And then we can go down and cut it and bring it back up here and secure it over the top of that hole. Well, we've got our piece of timber for securing the fan up in the roof. We've got some screws to fix it in place. And we've got our drill, and we're just going to grab some wire, some cable, some twin and earth to run a switch power feed from our switch up to our fan to power the fan. Okay, so we've got our support in place, and that's fixed securely with some screws into the timber beam on the side. And we've got our wire to power our fan that's run down into the room. And so it's all ready for us to go downstairs and to continue on downstairs. And it's pretty straightforward from here to get the fan up and running. Okay, so we've got to install the mount that the ceiling fan hangs on. And that goes up here on the roof. Now, it can either go this way or it can go that way. And sometimes it's good just to double check by looking at the fan, because sometimes there'll be a good face and a not so good face. So if the fan mount was to go that way, the fan would sit like that. And so that's probably the way you want it to face, because it's the smoothest side when you look at the fan. If it was this way, and it's got this cover here and the switch that would show as you walked into the room, and it would be more noticeable. So sometimes there's just that to look out for when you're mounting the fan base, which side you want to see, which would look better. So we're going to put that fan up facing that way with a notch facing that way. Now this fan's already been assembled because I took it down from another room. If you want to see the video about the fan that we replaced this one with, it's the Sky Fan DC, the link's just up there. But this one is still a good fan, it's one I use all the time, I quite like it. And we're going to pair it with this smart controller here. Now this controller doesn't actually need a wall switch to operate. It just needs power to work constantly, and you can use the remote to turn it on and off. And you can also use, we're going to use Home Assistant too to control it. However, in WA or Australia there are regulations that say that you have to have a switch nearby that you can isolate the fan with. So if you get an electrician in, it's likely that they'll tell you that you need to have a switch here still, and you just leave it on. And if you ever want to turn it off, you can turn it off. It doesn't have to go right here on the wall. You can put it somewhere else in the room or somewhere nearby where you can isolate the fan in an emergency. But that's just an Australian standard that you have to do. To mount the fan, I just usually use roofing tacks. I don't usually use the screws that come with it because they're usually rubbish, but you can use whatever screw that you like. Okay, so this is the fan controller we're going to be using today with this AC ceiling fan. It's a Smart by Brilliant fan controller, and it's Wi-Fi, and it's also radio frequency. So we've got our remote, which is a radio frequency remote. So that will work just on its own to control the fan. It's also got a switch for the light, so you can have a light built into the fan as well. I don't have a light on this fan, so I'm going to use this to turn on the lights in my room using the Shelly dimmer via Home Assistant. And I know that works because I've been doing that for quite a while in another room. And this is the fan controller itself, and that fits in up against the ceiling underneath the cowling of the fan. If you have plugs attached to the fan, which often you do, it just simply plugs in, and then you wire the feed into the terminal block on the fan. I've got mine's been used somewhere else, so it's been cut off, so I'm going to just use splice connectors to connect it all up. And we can see here the two antennas, one for the RF for the remote, and we've got an antenna for the Wi-Fi, which I found to be quite good, as often the Wi-Fi reception at the ceiling level is not that great with the Wi-Fi access points. They're sort of designed more to go down and serve devices in the room rather than devices on the ceiling, but this works fine in another room that I have it installed at. So that is the controller, and this works with a Tuya, and it does connect to Home Assistant, and it's got 3 speeds, so I can say that this will definitely work if that's what you're looking for. Okay, one more thing left to do. What's inside? Well, it's quite compact and a little bit different to most that I've looked at. It's got the capacitors there, which change the speed of the fan. No capacitor is full speed. 1.5 microfarads is medium, and 2 microfarads is low speed. We've got the Tuya module just here. So it's a typical Tuya module with the Wi-Fi antenna coming from it, and then we've got the RF module just here. And it looks like underneath there is the controller that actually controls the fan itself, that the Tuya modules talk to. And it looks like 2 IGBTs here to turn the light on, those ones there. And these are probably triacs to switch in the capacitors. Usually these have relays inside it, but this doesn't, so it's obviously made the size of it quite small. And I did wonder if this was dimmable, but I don't think it is. Because it's got the 2 IGBTs. I thought perhaps it was a dimmable lighting controller, but I don't think it actually is. I think it's just been used to switch the power on and off. And then we've got the power supply here that powers all of it, of course. All right, let's put this back together and then we can try it out. Okay, so I've got my fan controller cut with splices installed, red splices, which are good for 0.75mm to 1.5mm cable. We'll just slide our fan controller in there like so. We've got a little 3-terminal connector to connect our earths up together. This is our power feed that's coming in to supply power to the fan. Okay, so we've got it all connected up now. So we've got our power going to the fan out of the fan controller. So it says to fan just there. And we haven't got our light connected, so it's just terminaled off. And then of course on the other side we've got our earths all connected. And everything, the input into the fan controller connected. And we've got our aerials all tucked up. And I've put a little cable tie to hold it in place so that it's easy to put the cover on. So now we should just be able to slide this cover up and gently position it so it's all hidden. And we've got some little screws in the bottom that twist and lock on like so. And now the fan sits like so. So we'll just tighten those screws and we're ready to turn it on and try it out. Well, our fan controller is all mounted on the wall and our fan is up and running. So what happens if our fan controller doesn't work? Well, most of the time these come paired with the controller, so there's no problem. Sometimes one controller will turn on 2 fans. It doesn't happen that often, but sometimes it does. But what you can do is turn the power off to this fan. That's why it's sometimes good to have. That's why it's good to have isolators for each fan. And then you can hit this little learn button, and then it will pair this RF controller to the fan. So that's got to be done just after the power's been turned back on to the fan. So turn the power off, turn the power on, and then come right up near the fan and hit the learn button, and then it will pair the fan to the remote. But this one's working fine. We can turn it on, and we can see that it's all working good. So we've got high, medium and low. So now we can connect this to the Tuya Life app. We're in the Tuya Smart app, and don't use the Brilliant Smart app because we want to connect it to Home Assistant using the Tuya integration. So we come in here, and we're going to have to turn off the power to the fan. And then after it's been off for a few seconds, we can reactivate power, and that will put it into pairing mode. And then we can go up to the Add Device up in the top right hand corner, and we'll just come down to select Small Home Appliances and select Fan with Wi-Fi. Now this is going to be a lot simpler if you can connect to our 2.4 gigahertz wireless network. Some wireless networks are both, but if you have a 2.4 gigahertz one, it's going to be the easiest way to do it. So I've just got my details in there for my wireless network, and I'll hit next. Confirm that, even though we can't see it, unfortunately, we can confirm that it's blinking. So it's added our fan successfully with no problems, and we can give it a name, which I'll do now. Okay, so now we've got our fan all set up in the Tuya Smart app. So we should be able to turn it on, and that fan is now running, operating through the Tuya Smart app. And it does actually look like that we have brightness on that fan controller. Might have to check that out later and see if it actually is dimmable, but it is possible because it's got the two IGBTs in there. All right, now that's connected, and I'll show you how to connect it up into Home Assistant using the Tuya developer platform. Okay, so we're going to use Tuya Local to connect this fan up to Home Assistant, and to install that, if you haven't got it installed already, there's various ways you can do it. You can use hacks, but what we're going to do today is we're going to copy it from the repository and copy it straight into the Home Assistant file directory. So I'm going to use Visual Studio Code to do that. And once again, there's more than one way. We can use Samba as well if you've got Samba set up. So if we just open Visual Studio Code, I'll show you where it has to go. So it's in our config file, and it will be put into custom components, which is this folder here. You can see that I've already got the folder just there. So I'm not going to actually install it now because I've already got it installed. But what we can do is come across to the repository on GitHub, and this is it just here. The link will be down in the description, and we can simply come and download the zip file. So once we've downloaded that zip file, we can find it in our downloads, open it up, and you'll see that the file we want to copy is this one if we haven't got custom components. If you do have custom components already, then you just need to copy this file here across to Home Assistant. Like so. So we'll grab that and we put this over into the custom components folder. And that's it. Once it's copied across, then you just have to restart Home Assistant, and then we can continue on with using Tuya Local. So once again, I've already done that. I've got my folder in here, and I've restarted Home Assistant, and I've got Tuya Local running on my system already. Okay, now we've got our fan all installed and connected. We're going to come over into Home Assistant, and we're going to configure Tuya Local and set up our fan and get it working. So we're going to come into Configuration tab and go to Integrations, and then we're going to do Add Integration. Now for this to work, you're going to have Tuya Local installed, as I described in the method previous, and you're also going to need your local key. Now if you want to know how to get your local key, I've made a separate video about that, and if you want to go and look in the description or just at the tab at the top, you can go check out that video right now, how to find your Tuya Local key. So we're going to do Add Integration, and we're going to select Tuya Local. Now we're going to look for our device, which should be recognized. So it's this one here, and it's the device ID for our fan that we just installed. Now we found that device ID in our developers platform. So if you wanted to find out how we know that that's it, you can have a look at the separate video, as I said before. Okay, so we press submit, and now we need to enter the name for our device. So it's going to be the Playroom fan. And we also have to put our local key in here that we got from our developer platform. So now the local key is entered and the name's entered, and we've got protocol 3.3, we can press submit. Okay, the first thing we want to set up is a fan. So we're going to select fan. Now on our card we want to have the ID as the switch at the top that turns the fan on and off. So that would be data point number 1, as we pointed out in the video about how to get your local key. Our friendly name is going to be fan, Playroom fan. And the fan speed control, as once again pointed out in the video how to get your local key, is going to be data point 3. So we can see here the fan is running at the moment, and it's running at speed 2. Now we're going to set our fan speeds to 1, 2 and 3. Now once again, this is from that video, how to get your local key. I also showed you what the data points mean and what values they use. So on this particular fan, the fan speed values are 1, 2 and 3. So now we've selected all that, we can press submit, and our fan should work. But we're also going to add one more entity, that's the light, so we can turn the light on and off. So we'll untick this box, and we're going to add a switch. So we'll press submit, and we're going to select data point number 9, which is a boolean, which is either on or off. And we're going to call it the Playroom light. Now I already have a Playroom light, which is actually a light, it's a Shelley dimmer. But this is, even though we're calling it the Playroom light, it's actually going to show up in Home Assistant as a switch entity, which is exactly what we want. We want to be able to turn the light on and off with our remote on our fan. So we'll press submit. We want to leave that ticked, and we can press submit again, and it will complete the process. We're just going to select upstairs and finish. So now our fan is all installed, we can go and try it out. See, our fan is running there on speed 2, and if we select our fan in Home Assistant and look at the entities, we can turn our fan off, and that's worked, that's shut down. We can turn it back on again. We can increase the speed to full speed. And that's all working perfectly. Or we can put it right down to low speed. We should be able to turn it off too. So that turns it off if we put it down to speed 0. So that is all working perfectly. We'll just leave it at speed 2. Now, we're just going to try out the remote, and we'll see that the remote will now activate an entity in Home Assistant. So that's our entity in Home Assistant. I'll just grab the remote, and it's got the light switch. So if we press it, we see the light turns on, and if we press it again, we'll see the light turns off. So now we can link that with an automation to turn our downlights on and off using the remote. So that fan installation is all complete, and this is a great little fan controller that works very well with Home Assistant, and it can be installed in pretty much any AC type ceiling fan. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did and it was helpful, please give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos on electrical installations and home automation, then please subscribe. If you would like to get the fan that you saw installed today, which I feel is a nice fan, it's a good balance between good price and it looks nice, then it's the Airlie II, and it's available at Beacon Lighting. It comes in black as well as white. It comes in 3-blade and 4-blade, and there's also a larger 52-inch version as well for a larger room, that's something larger than a bedroom. It comes with a light underneath it if you want a light. If you'd like to get it installed and you live in Perth, then you can contact me at my website, and I can arrange supply and installation of the fan and or the fan controller. And of course, if you live somewhere else, there are plenty of capable electricians around Australia or elsewhere in the world that will be able to install a fan just like this for you, or the fan controller itself. Hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.